Welcome, friends and family. So excited to be here with you today. It is the 17th day of June, and we're coming to you to talk a little bit more about John Maxwell's 17 Irrefutable Laws of Teamwork. One thing we see in this industry is the value of a team. And what John's talking about in chapter 11 is the law of the scoreboard. The team can make adjustments when it knows where it stands. The team can make adjustments when it knows where it stands. John starts off by introducing us to Walt Disney. And he talked about in the early years, and of course, anybody that studied Walt Disney knows that Walt went through a lot of hardships to get to where he was. But it goes to where he was. And, it talks a lot about some of the first big innovations he came up with, like a mouse, and then a talking mouse, and the first cartoons. And then it goes on to talk about maybe one of the best movies, they said, of all time that Disney put out, and that was Snow White. What a phenomenal movie. I think we've all probably heard of that movie, no matter what, even if you're from the Alpha generation, as young as my son is, 13. I bet everybody has heard of Snow White. So maybe one of the best movies of all time. But in 1966, Walt passed away. And again, we're talking about the law of the scoreboard. And what the guys did there is they quit thinking that what they started doing was saying, what would Walt do? So they were always looking backwards instead of moving forwards. And a scoreboard will tell you where you're at presently, but looking in the rearview mirror, it's hard to go forward, right? So that was their whole thing. What would Walt do? After a couple decades of failed years, they brought in somebody from outside of Disney. And this gentleman came in and he did a phenomenal job of putting people in the right places, but also getting a real look at where they were with the finances and what was working and what wasn't working and what they needed to cut out and what needed to remain. And they couldn't do that without a scoreboard, right? So John goes on to tell about the value of the scoreboard. And I really like this. I'm just going to read here to you what John put. I thought this was great. As the game begins, the game plan is very important as the scoreboard means nothing. But as the game goes on, the game plan means less and less, and the scoreboard becomes more and more important. So generally, before somebody comes out to start a football game or a basketball game or baseball, they're going to put together a game plan, right? They're going to talk about it, and they're going to review film, and they're going to say, this is what we're going to do. But once you start playing the game plan becomes a little less important, and the scoreboard becomes more important. You see, the game plan tells you what you want to happen, but the scoreboard tells you what is happening. So you adjust your game based upon your game plan, based upon the scoreboard, right? He also says that the scoreboard is essential for evaluating, and he put growth equals change. And I love this. If you want to become better, you have to change in the right direction. Not just any direction, but the right direction. How are you going to know how to do that? You can do that only if you're able to evaluate yourself and your teammates. That is another reason for the scoreboard. It gives you continual feedback. Competing without a scoreboard is like bowling without pins, right? You may be working hard, but you don't really know what you're doing. So you don't know if you're accomplishing. How many people get up on Monday, work hard all the way till Friday, did a lot of hard work, but don't leave feeling like they accomplished anything because they don't know if they did. And why don't they know? Because they don't have a scoreboard. The scoreboard is essential to adjusting. The higher the level you and your team are competing on, the smaller the adjustments required to achieve the best. But making key adjustments is the secret to winning. And the scoreboard helps you to see where those adjustments need to be made. So the higher you play, once you start playing at a higher level, it's even more important to have a scoreboard. Why? Because you're going to start seeing, okay, if I just change this a little bit over here or just tweak this a little bit over here, we can get more wins. So paying attention, the higher level you play, it doesn't mean you can scrap the scoreboard. Oh, we're doing phenomenal. We don't need a scoreboard anymore. Don't think that, because that's the day you're going to start decreasing, not increasing. This is a longer one, but I got to read it. It's so good. The scoreboard is essential to winning. In the end, nobody can win without the scoreboard. How do you know when the game is on the line without a scoreboard? How do you know when time is running out unless you check the scoreboard? How will you know if it's cruise time or crunch time unless you have the scoreboard as a measuring device? If you desire to take a leisurely drive with some friends, then you don't need to worry about that. But if you're trying to win the Indy 500, then you and your team must know how you're doing. Some organizations see the scoreboard as a necessary evil, and others just try to ignore it. Something they cannot do for long and still do well in their profession. And some organizations make checking the scoreboard such an important part of their culture that they continually able to recognize and seize opportunities that lead to huge success. So, guys, there's a lot of value in having a scoreboard, and we need to know the score, right? I can remember years ago, we met with EOS. We got taught the EOS model, and that's put together by Gino Wickman, the son of Floyd Wickman. Floyd Wickman was a tremendous real estate sales motivational speaker, encourager, trainer. His son Gino probably seen Floyd do such a good job at firing up agents and getting agents to go and be very successful. But I think he realized that every agent owns a small business and they become business owners. So Gino put together what's called EOS. I encourage you to look into this, the EOS model. And about 7 years ago, me, Duke Davis, Ed Metcalf, and Johnny Stites, Rhonda Otto was with us then. We all met back in a room and we discussed the EOS model. And in the EOS model, there's few things, but we're going to talk about today is the scoreboard. He taught us how to put together a scorecard. And that way, we were to take the 5 most important things that we thought needed to be measured, which for us was, client satisfaction, number of sales, uh, those things. And we began to, every week, we would identify the scoreboard to what we'd set a goal, what we thought we should have, like, on the scorecard for customer care, we always wanted 5s. Why would you lower the standard? On a scale of 1 to 5, you want a 5. So we put 5s. And anytime we got below a 5, we had to recognize it and then we had to talk about it. So that's the value of having a scorecard. You can immediately, when you go to a basketball game, what's the first thing you see when you walk in? The scoreboard, right? Tells you immediately who's winning, Boston or Dallas. So the scoreboard is so important, and not only in sports, but in your business as well. And not only in your business. We've took this, Lindsay and I, we took this and started to implement it into our family. We have FOS, and it's called Family Operation Systems. And so we have the things that we want to measure, because guys, usually what you measure gets done. What you expect, when you inspect what you expect, it gets done. So we have our FOS scorecard there, and we put things that we want to be held accountable for, and we go through it every week, and that has helped me so much. So not only in your business, but in your family. The value of a scoreboard is so important. If you're not doing it, I want to challenge you. Take a little time this week. Look at the important things that you do in your business, in your life, and then begin to figure out a way that you can track those. Guys, hope you have a great week. Thank you.